Okay, good morning everyone. Bienvenue à Montréal. So we're first. I guess we're the warm-up act, if nothing else. And look, let me state something off the top. As you heard in the introduction, I'm economics columnist at The Logic, and I know nothing at the best of times. And I might know less than nothing about quantum, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best, and if nothing else, this might be a show and tell for the types of questions, dumb, naive questions that these distinguished panelists get on a daily basis when it comes to where we're at in quantum. We're a big panel, as you can see. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to talk. I know that the way some of these things go, if I ask a complicated question off the top, I'll be tempted by a follow-up, and it'll be over and we won't get to the end. So I'm going to start with a short one first. But it's one I think, to the extent that I know about quantum, watching what's going on the surface, people are really curious about how far away we are from something real happening, from a quantum Google, a quantum Microsoft, a quantum IBM. So I don't put that to everybody off the top. I mean, you can take that question wherever you want to go. Don't take it too long, as I said. Let's try to have a conversation. But how far are we, how many years until we have something real? Start here.
Okay, so I'm Taro Shimada, CEO of the Toshiba, and also the leading Q-Star in Japan. In Japanese government, we have discussed that our goal in 2030, more than 10 million people is using quantum technology without knowing it. So namely, quantum ChatGPT moment. In order to do this, it's not really complete quantum computer coming out, but it's a combination of the technologies combined together so that the people are slowly integrated into a quantum era. So that's our goal.
Okay. How many years? Can you give me? How many years?
2030.
2030?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you count?
Like I said, I know nothing.
Okay. I get it.
Roger, how far away?
So, first of all, you said quantum, and quite often when people say quantum, there's an invisible computer behind that, all right? So, I think we are seeing quantum technologies at the moment already doing things we can't do with classical technologies in the world of sensing. But the big question is, quantum computing, which is a different sort of computer, when is it going to be, when a quantum computer is going to do something useful? We've been funding, we've had a 10-year program in the UK. I've watched the language subconsciously shift from saying, if we can make quantum computers, to say when. You asked the same question. I think it's going to be 2 o'clock in the afternoon of the 15th of May, 2030. Okay, so anyway, but about 5 years' time, we've been through the rather synthetic idea of can we demonstrate quantum volume, etc. I think over the next few years, we'll see someone be able to say, I've just achieved something, and I know of no way of having done that with classical means. Now, it may not be very big, but that really is the quantum advantage moment. The money, of course, is coming in because it wants the utility of quantum computers. So don't underestimate, there are great minds, and the problems they are looking at solving are not academic ones now. They really are business opportunities. So I think when we see that, and I do agree with the date, we're going to see something which is not just, oh, that's interesting, but actually it's got significant business implications.
Okay. Margot, what do you think? I know the CEO of NVIDIA got people upset not so long ago when he gave sort of a pessimistic outline for...
He changed his mind. But
he changed his mind.
Yes, well,
You're being a tough, tough on me. Margot, what do you think?
yeah, well, I do think the NVIDIA CEO is incentivized to say quantum isn't coming very soon. But look, I'm a private investor, and I would tell you that your question is the #1 question of anybody looking to put money in, even after speaking to a number of experts while they're doing diligence. But what perspective I can give you is that 6 or 7 years ago, when I was looking at investing in quantum, most of these front-running companies were still just talking about the science behind why their approach would be valid for building a quantum computer. That has shifted over the last 5 years to many of the companies having published architectures of what they're building towards, many of them validated by third parties. Their roadmaps are all indicating in the next 5 to 10 years hitting fault tolerance and scaling up into the size and power level of computers that theoretically could have some kind of transformative use case. And we're also seeing a lot of development happening on the algorithm side. So it's not just the computer itself, but it's also the software that you're going to run on the computer that together comes, when they meet and when they match, turns into a real application. That is essentially what's happened with generative AI between GPUs and transformer-based architectures. The same work is being done in quantum, and teams on both sides are progressing, and they are locking in on a 5 to 10 year timeline.
Really? So you're going to exit from your quantum invested in 10 years then? Is that the...
Liquidity is a different story we can definitely talk about, but certainly you can think that when there's a fault-tolerant moment that large strategic big tech companies are going to potentially make acquisition plays, and those companies will be in a better position to potentially make revenues at that point that really change the game for their profitability and longevity.
Excellent, thank you. Horibe-san, what do you think about that question? How long?
Hello? Yeah. So I'm Masahiro, Deputy Director at G-QuAT, and the G-QuAT mission is creating the global business market using the quantum, not quantum market. Quantum is basically a tool. It's like HPC and some digital tools. The quantum is one of the digital tools. And then from the user's aspect, it's they don't know the quantum is not special. Quantum is special. So we have to integrate the quantum technology to the existing computing platform and the communication platform.
Yes.
And then so we are creating the usability, a very well usability platform. And then for establishing that platform, we collaborate with the quantum engineer researchers and the non-quantum research and engineers. And in the past, we doing the R&D based on the existing quantum researchers areas, but we need more resources from the existing engineering field, the market field. And so the G-QuAT is established some kind of testbed for the GPU HPC with the 3 types of quantum computers. And that platform used to create the many modality of the use cases in the many areas. It's biotechnologies and the transportations and the drug discoveries and the aerospace, everything. So we need to collaborate the existing other industry areas. So any users in each field who want to access quantum, but existing platform a little bit complex. It's very hard to access. And then so we are creating this very useful platform. And then so also in other words, the hardware aspect, it's a quantum technology, quantum computer is very excellent technologies, but not enough to solve the realistic industrial problem. The scale is very small and it's very high error rate. And then so we have to develop the next generation, the future generation quantum computers. It's a large scale quantum computers and so the large system development. So we need to collaborate with existing system engineers. And so we are encouraging the existing engineers and the researchers to join the quantum technology development. So we also prepare some kind of evaluation test bed and the system level demonstration test bed and so on. So almost all our facility is open for access for end users. And then we support to create the global business ecosystem using quantum. Collaborate is in the world. Yeah, these are our missions. Thank you.
All right. Tung-Yi, you and I were talking about this question a little bit in the green room. You have a pretty interesting way of thinking about it. So floor is yours. How much longer until we have the breakthrough moment?
I'd like to look at the issue when the quantum computer era will come from different angles, not from the technical issue that need to be resolved. I use the semiconductor industry and the electronic industry as a reference. Look at the timeline of those two industries, how those industries evolve, and look at the quantum qubit and the quantum computer industry. I have a note to show you some numbers. Look at the semiconductor industry. The first transistor was invented in 1947. It's around 1950. Then the first kind of silicon-based gate, a device, was invented in 1958. It's about 10 years later. You look at the timeline, 1950 and 1960. Then the first processor based on the transistor and the MOSFET was used in a real application, calculator, in 1971. Another 10 years later. Okay, so then the first kind of personal application happened. IBM introduced the first personal computer with Intel CPU in 1981. And also along with the Microsoft OS, that within 10 years, then the personal computer, that is the semiconductor industry and the computer industry booming in 1990. The whole thing happened around about 1950 to 1990, take about 40 years. Okay, look back what happened in the qubit and the quantum computer. The first qubit was invented in 1992. It's about 40 years after the invention of the semiconductor transistor. So we remember the first timeline, 1990. So then, first kind of quantum computer was introduced by D-Wave in 2011. Then, the first commercial quantum computer was introduced by IBM in 2019. From the invention of the qubit to the first commercial quantum computer introduction, take about 25 years, 25 to 30 years. Look at the semiconductor industry. From the first transistor to the first commercial PC, also take about 25 to 30 years. So timeline match. So based on this, so then, PC, the first personal computer PC, the key application that happened in 1980. 10 years later, personal computer booming, dominated the market, and also Intel, the CPU. Then look back, if the first commercial quantum computer was introduced by IBM in 2019, it's 2020. So that implied that we can expect that 10 years later, quantum computer industry will boom. So then, what opportunity when the quantum computer industry booming? So first thing, who can be the processor supplier, dominating process supplier in the quantum computer era? In personal computer, that's Intel. But in the quantum computer, who can be the leader in the QPU? And also, consumer, the computer, quantum computer. In the personal computer, the leader is IBM. But however, in the quantum computing area, right now we see the NVIDIA tend to be the GPU, then go to QPU, or the system. But however, right now, from the traditional computer migrate to the quantum computing in the middle stage, into the hybrid system with the classical computer and the quantum computer. So that means we can imagine, in order to go into the quantum computing era, you need a two-player one player in the classical computer area, there's the GPU, the other player in the quantum computer or the QPU area. So that means you need two leaders. So NVIDIA may become the GPU leader in the classical computing area. But then who can be the leader in the QPU or quantum computer area? That is an opportunity to every company. And also Microsoft, we need a software company to develop OS and the software. Who can be the equivalent software player in the quantum computing area? That's opportunity. Many companies can have a wish to achieve that goal. And nothing. In order to have the industry to happen, to become real, it needs a killer application. In the computing era, personal computing is a killer application. So that's why the PC and the smartphone and server happen right now. But in the quantum computing, what is the killer application? So far, it seems that AI is a killer application, evolved from the conventional supercomputer platform. So to sum up, all the elements to drive the quantum computing era are already there. So we can foresee, based on timeline, I don't say when it will happen. I say based on the timeline, history, what happened in the semiconductor and the computing industry applied to the quantum QB and the quantum computing. So we can say, roughly say, 2030 will be the year that the quantum computing become the mainstream in the industry. So that's I don't make a guess, but I like to use the evidence and the timeline for other industry to foresee what will happen in the quantum computer industry. So that's what I want to share with all of you.
All right, so I sense a consensus around 2030 then. All right, let's see. Shimada-san, I thought I'd come back to you.
Yeah.
Toshiba, famous company, legacy company in Japan. Talk to us a bit more about why Toshiba is betting on quantum. Here in Canada, our older companies, our established companies tend to be more risk adverse. Toshiba seems like it's making a big bet on something that we can't say for certain is going to work. So what's the thinking in your company about quantum?
I mean, this is the nature of the company called Toshiba. It seems like you've been seeing as a Toshiba as an established company, but we are reinventing always. Always in the latest technology and in inventing new things, and that's the definition of the company Toshiba. So quite naturally, the next generation computing and in communications, quantum, why not? That's the mentality of the company.
Okay, and since we're on this then, so we heard that we need a killer application. How close are you to a killer application at Toshiba, or what? And this is something else I want to hear from the panel. Like, what is that use case? Do we have use cases today? And if we don't, what's the first tangible thing that someone like me might experience that's like sort of based in quantum physics?
So let me go first.
Yes.
And I mean, this is the big question actually. And so it is important to have the user basis, the people who wants to use. The story we hear a lot is that the people who wants to sell the quantum technologies, but it's really that we need the engagement from the people who wants to leverage the quantum technologies. And those are the people who has the real idea. If we solve what kind of problem, then they will spend the money. That's a question. So that's why that in our consortium in Japan, QStar, we are entirely focusing on to generating all kinds of different use cases. So quantum technology is so pre-basis. So you can use any kind of information, any kind of type of the industry. So that's why that it is important to have each individual different industry, they challenge us that if you can solve this problem, I'll buy this. product. I start using this technology and so forth. We have already done that. Now it's time to working together with Horibe-san, G-QuAT, collecting all the most advanced technology into one location, and then we test it. So this is how we can actually developing that, creating a moment of that real use cases, killer use cases.
Okay. Roger, do you have a thought on that? What do you think the first real use case is, or the most efficacious application is going to be?
I'll pick on two where there's evidence that I'm not alone in thinking this way. We used an expression early on when we were funding programs to say we were looking for examples of currently intractable problems, problems which we know, because a digital computer is just one form of a computer, digital computer struggles with. And a really good example of that is factoring large numbers, which is where public key encryption currently has its protection. And so governments were quite clear that one of the applications they were concerned about was actually those trying to crack codes. And the whole post-quantum crypt exercise has been aimed at that. The other one, which is quite clear, it's not just me who thinks this way, is look what happened to quantum computing stocks, hardware stocks at the end of last year. And that was because it's becoming clear there is a very exciting business which currently doesn't have the processing power it needs, and that's for those people trying to train large language models for AI. And so that has appeared as a currently intractable problem where there's a strong belief that quantum computers will be needed.
Okay. Margot, Roger just brought up what we're seeing in the public markets around some quantum stocks. Maybe a good jumping off point to bring you in and share what you're seeing in the financing area of all this. How difficult is it for quantum companies to raise money right now? What we're seeing in the stock markets would make it seem like it's a place where lots of people are excited to go. Yet at the same time, I hear it's extremely expensive to set up a quantum computer, and then extremely expensive to figure out how to make that technology work. So a lot of money needed up front. Talk us through that. Talk to us a bit about what you're seeing.
Look, deep tech requires a lot of capital, and quantum is no different from that. You have seen big corporates like Google and IBM put in decades or more of capital and resources towards R&D on this front. Today, it's a combination of public, private, and corporate funding that is going into some of the leading companies outside of big tech, driving towards their respective approaches to building a quantum computer. But look, a fault-tolerant quantum computer is going to look like potentially the size of a small data center. Imagine the hundreds of millions that it's going to take for R&D to get there. There is not enough capital from one source to make this happen. It is not easy for quantum companies that have reached a later stage to raise money right now. They are competing in the private and public markets with AI companies that are actually growing faster than companies we've ever seen before. I'm sure a lot of you have seen in the news that tools that are enabling vibe coding are growing from 0 to 100 million in 6 months. That is, so quantum companies are competing for capital that requires longer-term thinking for a massive outcome with today's very near-term use cases and growth in companies in the market. I think what some people or retail investors may not understand or think about a lot when they see public quantum companies is that when a lot of these companies went public at the height of the markets in 2021, a SPAC or becoming a public company was really one of the last resort channels for raising large sums of money at that point in time. It's not an easy process to become a public company or go through the regulatory processes and have the type of reporting required. But some of these companies were successfully able to raise 500 million or more in doing that. And now, regardless of some of the traction that we're talking here for individual companies, a lot of these stocks are being played on bets related to public remarks from someone like Jensen at NVIDIA, and it's not necessarily reflective of those individual companies and where they are at. But generally, there has been an increased interest in the last 2 years in the private markets, from what I see, in quantum in general. 5 to 10 years ago, it'd be very difficult to approach any private venture capital investor and say, do you invest in quantum? Are you considering it at all? The vast majority would say no. That is too, that's not near term enough for us in our investment time horizon. But today, you have a lot more quantum curious private investors. The difficulty is finding one lead anchor investor that's willing to write a really big check that others can rally behind. And a lot of the leading quantum companies have hired investment banks and been out in market for more than 12 to 18 months in order to raise the types of large sum amounts that you're seeing in headline news.
Okay. Tung-Yi, do you have thoughts on financing? I mean, you have some ambitions in this space, obviously. Where are you going to get the money you need?
How do you want to do in the quantum computing area?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, my company I work on is on the memory, so it's not quite downstream in the computing industry. But we still try to find a way to participate in the new industry. For example, PQC. PQC is very urgent. We need to have a system and the product to migrate the current system to have the PQC, the capability before 2030. This is mandated by NIST. So that's why in our company, the memory company, we developed the product to integrate the PQC. So some software company integrate the PQC algorithm, but what we can do to integrate the PQC algorithm into the memory component, become hardware. This is one area as a memory company we can contribute and participate in the quantum computing industry. The other thing we can do is I talked to many quantum computing experts in those 2 days. I found that in the ecosystem of the quantum computing hardware, there's still no so-called real quantum memory. What is it? There's a memory used in the classical supercomputer, but there's no so-called quantum memory. So I found that this is the area that the memory company in the traditional semiconductor industry can do. Then, in those 2 days, I found another interesting that as a company with the manufacturing capability in semiconductor can contribute. Because I talked to some quantum computing company. So what is the yield of your qubit? They say, we wish we can get 20% yield in our industry. 20 yield, 20% is very low. So what we can do is because quantum qubit, it needs a very precision process control and the manufacturing process control. That is the strength and the default of our semiconductor industry. So I think the best way is now to marry the quantum computing industry, marry with the company with the manufacturing capability in the semiconductor industry. We can contribute our know-how and the equipment know-how and the standard practice to enable the quantum computing area to have a stable and day in, day out repeatable, reproducible qubit that can drive the industry, move along even faster. That's what we call 2+1. One is the PQC, the other is the quantum memory, the other thing is the precision process control. This is also kind of any player in the semiconductor industry can contribute to the quantum computing industry.
I have a question about the difficulty that I assume exists in trying to excite companies, just the potential market for quantum technology, and to make a bet on a technology that could change everything, but today, based on what we know, might never come to pass. Horibe-san, I wonder if from your experience, what have you learned about what it takes to convince people to take that risk, convince companies to try to put a little money on the table, to spend some time thinking about what quantum might do for them?
Yeah, so that is a very good question and a very important point. And so we are now communicating to many end users and then also the suppliers to contribute next generation quantum computers. So first of all, they say the in future, so how large size of market is created using the quantum technologies. And then so the visibility of market size is very important. What can we do now? And so the one possibility is that the very accessible platform, computing platform, and so the R&D platform have to be created. So the G-QuAT is now creating the GPU-based quantum classical computing platforms, and to provide end users, and then also to provide the middleware and the software developers. And then, so and otherwise, so we also provide the opportunity to access the quantum computers to the suppliers. Suppliers basically interested about quantum market, but they concern about market size in the future. So we are making a roadmap. We have to make a roadmap for the market size and which type of component is the technology required, and that information have to share to all stakeholders. So that activity is very important. So in the case of the use cases, and then so we are trying to access the existing market and then so future market. And the existing market, for example, is material developers. So they already use the existing computers to design the new materials and so on. And but they require very short-term solutions. But it is difficult to create the short-term solution using quantum. But drug discoveries and so aerospace industry market, they require the long-term solutions. And it's fit to the quantum activities now. So we are now accessing the aerospace and the genomic analysis and so some kind of new industrial market stakeholders. And so we create the end users to create the new market. So that is one key point to show the future quantum market size. So also we are now communicating with many stakeholders, many end users, and then so creating the visibility of the future market, and then try to make roadmap and how large size market is created in the 5 years or 10 years, and then so how much revenue we'd like to get there. And so the information sharing is very important, and then so the public and open platform is very important. And so both activity is our missions now. So these are one possibilities. But we would like to discuss more ideas.
All right, yeah. Thank you. We've got about 15 minutes left, so I'm going to shift the conversation to the role of government in all of this, because I feel we might be able to spend at least 15 minutes talking about that. Roger, can I start with you? And I'll leave it open-ended. I mean, and perhaps we'll drill down a bit. But what is the proper role of government in quantum right now? Does it need to create the right regulatory environment? Does it need to lead the financing of all this? Margot talked about how much money is needed. Just how should we start a conversation about government's role in shaping this industry?
I'll jump to the answer and then fill in the gaps, all right? But there's lots of reasons, but what I'm telling my lords and masters in the UK government at the moment is the need for continued public money going into quantum is not to make quantum happen, is to make it happen here, all right? And that's the Canadian government think the same. They want a quantum business in Canada. Yeah. We want one in the UK. And it's all about place. Now, I mean, you said it's expensive technology. It's capital intensive. So governments can't afford to finance this from their own purse. And I said, for example, in the UK, when we were looking at constructing our National Quantum Computing Center, I said, it's not we want a quantum computer, we want a quantum computing industry, all right? So there's an industrial story here. So it's not just about capital, but what might make, you know, if I'm going to get our mission right, what might make a certain country attractive to a quantum computing company? And that is, I think, the big role of government. Access to skills, access to the fundamental science, because it's still evolving. We're not saying we've done that bit. It's not a kind of carry it across the valley of death. There are still new discoveries being made. There's still new science to come through. So there's skills, there's the science, there's access to capital, and then there's this business of regulation. And there are certain applications of quantum, I think, where regulation does play a role in terms of market making. And that's, for example, in position navigation and timing resilience and quantum sensing. But generally, the market making side is where governments have got to concentrate. Governments have got an ability to do this. They are, in effect, a big corporate user. They've got the scale, and they've got these big problems to crack. So helping can create a market. There may be role in regulation. And then they also provide this magic thing at the moment, because no technology, no matter how exciting, can continue forever without a customer. And so governments as a lead customer are absolutely key. And we've been running what we call catalyst programs, where we try and nobble a particular government department. Defense is an obvious one, but there's also, for example, transport, where we actually say, can we get a champion who can see the operational benefits and be that market leader? And having suitably educated and technically understanding customers is actually a key part of what you want. And proximity matters. You know, we're talking about building communities. So lead customers, I would say, if I was going to kind of rank that list, are incredibly important at the moment.
Okay. There's a geopolitical aspect to quantum. It's you know, perhaps sometimes difficult to talk about it, but it's there. Shimada-san, when you're thinking about how you're going to deploy your resources when it comes to quantum, in the environment we're in, is there an extra incentive to keep everything you're doing in Japan? Are you looking abroad to cooperate or to invest in countries like Canada, the US? Tell me how you think about that.
Well, I mean, you know, it is obvious that why I'm come over here, right? To talk about the quantum to the Canadian people. It's not just here. I'm being all over the places. Mm-hmm. So, like, you know, he said that about the government role, but I think it's important point is really that how open the government will be, will decide that, you know, which country is going to be flourish the quantum ecosystem. So I've been talking to Horibe-san and also those Japanese government people. This is the race over how much you can be continuously open. Otherwise, that you'll be left behind, and somewhere that who is more open, the money and the people will be shifted over there. So globally, I mean, you know, if you just put the wall, they will just try to develop that by themselves. I mean, that's a very important point that for the government to make the difference, because otherwise it's just you know, how much money you put it in, and but you know, it's just it's coming an arm race, and you know, we spend this money and we spend this money, But it's really not the money that only the one government spends, but how you can actually interconnect each other, creating an ecosystem.
Margot, how does this look from where you sit? Is that ecosystem being created, or do you just see a bunch of different governments running around talking about being the leaders in quantum just to make people
There's
feel
a
good back home?
a handful of countries that have, made very public statements, dedicated large vehicles of capital to building quantum ecosystems locally. It's a large part, actually, of a lot of the large fundraising rounds for the leading quantum companies as well. So yes, I'm seeing governments try their best to, as Roger said, keep the development where they are, and hopefully when there's breakthroughs, have an ecosystem and talent in place where you are. I think that the talent piece we haven't emphasized enough. Canada, and I guess I'm the Canadian on the panel here, did an incredible job building AI centers and talent in Canada, but we're still having a difficult time with the brain drain to large companies globally, and particularly in the US. There's other policies to think of beyond like specific funding for quantum in Canada. In 2019, a surprising stat was that Canada actually created more tech jobs than Silicon Valley and Washington combined. Some of that had to do with immigration policies. A lot of big tech companies started moving their headquarters to Canada, but a lot of Canadian entrepreneurs who had done their tour of duty in the Valley came home to start their companies in Canada. So there's providing funding for quantum companies to be here and actually employ and grow talent in our ecosystem. And then there's a lot of policies that are required to keep them here and keep entrepreneurs feeling that Canada is the place where they want to start their companies.
Tung-Yi, do you have a thought on this? What role do you think government needs to play in the development of the quantum industry?
So I can share the experience in Taiwan, how the government play a role to grow up the semiconductor industry. So two things. One, the government gonna spend the seed money to build a platform, just like what Canadian government is doing, to set up the lab, like a C2MI lab, provide the clean room and the equipment to the startup company, so they don't need to do the same thing by their company money. They can prove their concept in this government facility. Once it's proven, then take all the results away from the platform and grow the business. The other thing is how to motivate the engineer of the company. So first stage is definitely when the startup company go public, all the initial employee get the benefit from the IPO. But however, after the company continue to operate, how to motivate the following engineer. One way is to provide some motivation or flexibility in how the company to reward the engineer. One way that Taiwan is doing is maybe 40 years ago, the company can allocate 10% of the income as a bonus for the employee. But how the company convert the bonus to give the bonus to the employee is a very smart way. They convert the cash bonus to the stock based on the initial IPO price. So if the initial IPO price is $10, so if right now the market price of the stock is $50, so once you convert the cash bonus to the stock based on initial price, so the amount of the cash bonus has been amplified by 5 times. If that can motivate the engineer to work harder for the success of the company, for the more value for the stock they get from the company. So I think the company, these are two things I think we will see the successful cases in what Taiwan is doing. Set the platform or consortium to provide the facility for the startup company to prove their concept. The other thing, to have a flexible policy for the company how to distribute the bonus, the income with the employee. That is motivate the employee. That's a two-way, simple way. And it's proven working and very successful.
Okay, about 3 minutes left. I'm not about to ask I'm not about to ask a question that can be answered in 3 minutes, but I think we need to put it out there. I mean, so the G7 yesterday issued a quantum AI statement. That's helpful, I'm sure, interesting. I think the first time they've ever done that. But very clear that China is not part of the team. Lots of language in there to make you think that everything that the G7 will be doing will be at the exclusion of China. We only have 2 minutes. Who wants to take the China question? How difficult is it that a force in quantum, as far as I understand, is over there doing its thing? We've got a group of countries over here doing their thing. How to think about China in all of this? Who wants to take that question? Who's bold enough to do it?
Okay, and so I in the past I joined many types of meeting, and at this time it was government side discusses the innovation and the national securities, and so I really understand importance of both sides, but the almost all meeting is a discussion. It is completely divided. Innovations and the national securities, and also the almost all people is like to discuss innovation, but so in the case of the national security, everybody can say the general talk. And, so I personally request to government side to make a more strong linkage between the innovation discussions and the national security discussion. Sometimes it's government side is many societies recommend to accelerate the innovation and the collaboration, but sometimes it's suspended by the national securities. So also the transport and securities now. So in the future we have to connecting the innovation and collaboration discussion and the national securities. These are our personal ideas.
Okay. About a minute, Roger. You're the closest thing we have to a G7 official on the panel. Do you want to? I'm going to put you on the spot and leave us with a note about how the G7 countries, the Western powers, are thinking about China as a part of the development of quantum.
No is the answer, because I mean I am arm's length from the UK government, so I wouldn't speak.
So you're the closest thing we have.
I would answer the question this way, which is we've heard about skills in the electronics and semiconductor industry. We've heard about access to capital. I didn't mention this great company we've got in the UK, which 20 years ago came and is now a centre of excellence quantum called Toshiba. Okay, so it works, okay? And this is all about the free movement of people and capital. It's respecting IP. It is where the technical world meets the commercial world, and it's where this engine of quantum is going to have to start. And that community can only be made up of people who've got both similar values and trade and think the same way. And that is why thought is being given to these groupings, because it is, if you want to get the future benefits, it's got to start from an element of trust and being able to trade.
Thanks for that. And thank you for listening to the panel, and thank all of you for this. That's it. We're at overtime.